tuning in to another episode of Journey with Julie, the podcast. Today, I'm going to be chatting with Lana Hastings. She's a social worker specializing in mental health therapy for clients here in Manitoba and in Ontario, Canada. In her practice, Wellness Through Connection, she's committed to creating a secure space for clients that meets them where they're at, in a space that's non-judgmental, facilitates growth, and is always open for feedback. As a social worker, Lana believes that the therapeutic process is a collaboration between therapist and client that's meant to feel balanced and safe. And as someone who's been a client and is a client of therapy herself, she knows firsthand that investing time, energy, and money into your health and wellness can be a very big decision. So in this podcast, we're going to explore how to maintain your power in the therapeutic process so that your needs are met on your terms. So welcome, Lana.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
You're a therapist here in Winnipeg, and we actually met in the EMDR training that Kelly Penner Hutton put on at Peace of Mind. And so, we chatted about the importance of therapy. And it's interesting that your business is called Wellness Through Connection because trauma is a part of life, but if we're going to move through it, we have to move through it with people. We're humans. And through that connection, we can find the light on the other side, so to speak,
Beautiful. Yeah. Connection to community, connection to your own emotions, connection to what your beliefs are, what you value. Yeah.
But knowing that most trauma happens within relationship, finding a relationship with a therapist that's like the fit, just like the fit for a pair of shoes or jeans is really important. So that's what this podcast is about. Therapy on your terms, not the therapist's terms, but the client's terms, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And as someone who has accessed therapy, I think I started going maybe over 10 years ago. And I've had different therapists over the years, and I'm still in therapy. Mm-hmm. I actually just had a session at Safe Harbor. Julie is the founder of Safe Harbor, and I go there for therapy as a client. And so having, had that experience of going to therapy for the first time, being really nervous about it, having therapists that weren't the right fit, finding therapists in my life that were such a good fit.
Yes.
And I feel like from a client perspective and as a therapist as well, it's kind of a cool dual awareness you can have of that process.
Totally, because we have to remember the perspective of how hard therapy can be, especially if someone's, thinking that I could use some support, but they're scared, like therapy, nothing like, do I need a referral from a doctor? It's like, I'm going to grab my glasses, like sitting like a Freud and the therapist is like clipboard, like there's stereotypes of therapy.
Yeah. I mean, I do have a clipboard right now, but that's just for oh yeah, radio station. Good radio station anyway. My old university's radio station. But yes, went a little tangent there, but absolutely. There's a ton of stereotypes about what therapy looks like. And honestly, what we see in the media about therapy sessions, I have yet to find one that really resonates. I know there are some shows that can do it well, but wow, there's a lot of not great models for what it looks like in media. So yeah, it's kind of neat to demystify it and debunk some ideas around going.
Yeah. So, how does one find a therapist that they feel vulnerable with, that they feel like, okay, this person knows what they're doing. So I feel confident that I'm going to be helped, but not so much of a power differential, like my view, what I think I need doesn't matter because that therapist is the expert, or like I'm ashamed to say like really what's going on because I'm afraid they're going to judge me because they're so perfect and smart,
Yeah. So you are the expert of your life.
Mhm.
You and you alone know what you're feeling, what you've experienced, what your history is, what your trauma is. And you are in the car seat, you are in the driver's seat. The
Mhm.
therapist, hopefully, and if they're not, you can call this out, hopefully are in the passenger seat or the back seat. They're supporting
Yep.
you, they're
Mhm.
suggesting navigation,
Yes.
they're encouraging you, and they're holding a space that is confidential that you two can move freely within.
Yes.
You get to control what you share, what you don't share. And if the therapist ever asks you a question you're not comfortable answering, you can say pass. You can
Yeah.
say, oh, pass on that question. You can change direction. If you
Yes.
ever feel like the therapist is taking the wheel from you,
Mhm.
you can call that out and
Mhm.
or call that in. Maybe if confrontation is a hard thing for you,
Yeah.
super valid, super understandable. You can just maybe write an email after,
Mhm.
or just express what you need in session to make you feel more comfortable and safe.
Yes.
So I love using that analogy right off the bat with clients. And I also love saying to clients, if I'm not the right fit, keep trying.
Yes.
Because there are
Yes.
so many therapists out there, and I might not be it, and that's totally okay. And I'm even really down to earth to give you a referral of someone that I might think would be a better fit.
Yes.
Your needs are not getting met here. So know that you can try a therapist, and if it's not working out, you can try again. And some hopefully are even open enough to uh, help you navigate next steps in referring out.
Yeah, exactly. And clients have the option to call someone and ask questions before they even book an appointment and show up at the office, because that's scary in and of itself. Like well, if they're choosing in person, sometimes there's virtual options, but just going there, being physically present in the room with somebody, even if it's present during a virtual session, like that takes a lot out of someone. And if you want to ask questions before before that happens, that formal session, it's an option. You can call and ask questions and have your needs met before you even step into the formal session.
Yeah, you can get a feel for it. A lot of therapists offer consultations, so like 15-minute consultations. A lot of therapists on Psychology Today have videos of them talking, so you can kind of get a feel for their energy. And yeah, it's a big investment: time, money, energy on your part as a client. So you want to make sure it's worth all of those things. I sometimes like to encourage clients, but this is just me. This can change for anyone, but to maybe try it out at least one to like 3 or 4 times
Mm-hmm.
with that therapist. But sometimes you have a gut feeling. You go in, you're
Yes.
like, right, and that's fair and that's valid too. But I know there's been therapists I've gone to as a client and kind of wrote them off right away, but kept trying.
Yeah.
Went a few more times, and then I went, okay, actually, no, this is a good fit, right?
Yes. Yes. And how did you know? Like,
Uh,
how did you know that it like, yes, it might change after the second or third time, and then I know it might be asking your brain to go back in time quite a ways. But how did you know, like, yes, it will be okay to move forward with this person?
you know what? I didn't. I didn't want to go back. And I had some people in my community and my circle say, give it another shot.
Mm-hmm.
Just maybe go a couple, it's one session. How much really can be observed in one session?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I do know, but for me, it was the case where I think maybe I came in all arms crossed, like,
Yes.
what do you know?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so anyway, it was people in my circle that encouraged me to keep going. And
Yes.
I'm glad they did that, and I'm glad I did.
Yeah. And I guess it's kind of like a first date, like
Yeah.
there's some iceberg breaking to be done in that first session, and then the next sessions can shift and change as we settle into each other and the
Yeah.
rapport that's being built. Like it takes some time.
So, Julie, wouldn't it be awesome if we set up a speed dating with your therapist event? So you've got a bunch of therapists, you come in as the client, you're shopping around, and you
Yes.
get to have 5 minutes with each. And
Yes.
they talk about who they are. You get to interview them.
Yeah, because if we're talking about trauma, if people have hurt you in the past, maybe multiple times, and really important people in your life, it's going to be hard to feel like you can be vulnerable with a therapist. And that is completely natural, right? So it may take some time to really decide, like, do I want to journey with this person?
Absolutely. And you might be looking for something specific.
Mhm.
And maybe it's a certain fee. Maybe it's cultural considerations. Maybe you want someone who knows about your background culturally, about your community, about your beliefs. You don't really want to have to educate someone on what those are. So maybe you're looking for something very specific. And that's why I do like going on Psychology Today, because you can kind of search for a lot of different things and have filters on things.
Yes.
Um, but you're allowed to have preferences for who you open up with.
Mhm.
Um,
Well, and like there's different modalities too. Like some people don't want to talk about it, or some people don't even know what they would talk about.
yeah,
They feel like uneasy, but they perhaps maybe don't know why. So, like something like art therapy or yoga therapy or somatic experiencing, like some type of body approach or neurofeedback, like something that doesn't require a lot of talking, so that we can, because as therapists, especially with EMDR, eye movement desensitization reprocessing, we don't have to know everything because a lot of the work is happening internally, right? We're just there to help facilitate the natural healing from within someone to continue to move, right? Because sometimes there's some vulnerable things that we don't want to talk about. We can address them in therapy without having to go into detail, because we don't need to know all the details unless someone wants us to witness what happened, right? Or like narrative therapy, they want to tell the story or recreate the story on their own terms.
I really like the analogy of each modality or intervention therapeutically is like a giant tree. And the little slivers in the tree make up one way of doing therapy. So, right, you have EMDR, that's one sliver of a whole tree. You can have narrative, you can have art therapy, you can have CBT, DBT, somatic, all the ones you talked about before. It's really endless, the type of modality, and so it can be kind of a fun exploration to research modalities in advance and see which one might fit with you, and then that can help inform what therapist you might reach out to. Maybe you want internal family systems work, maybe there's so many that make up that tree. And I think sometimes people understandably don't really know what's out there, what they're looking for, and so kind of
and sometimes people just want to, like, oh my God, this is what's happening right now. Like, I just need someone to listen to me, or maybe give me feedback, because the loved ones in my life, like, I feel like they're just going to tell me what I need to hear or what I want to hear, right? But I want like an objective person in the room that is not my family, so that when I'm validated by the therapist, then it feels like true validation,
Yeah. And it's different because it's confidential.
Yes.
So we are bound legally to not disclose anything about your case unless there is expressed harm to yourself or another person. And only that piece alone, with your awareness, would have to be shared with your emergency contact or another agency in the community. But the confidentiality piece, if you think about it, everything you talk about in therapy, it stays there. It doesn't go anywhere else. And that's a really, I think, important piece to how the process can work, knowing that you are so emotionally safe in that space. And it is an objective perspective, like you said.
Yes. And it may take time, especially if, if people have been violated in regards to their personal health information or any other personal aspects of their life, that could be seen as another potential violation if we don't fully understand what confidentiality is, and that this is a locked room essentially for information,
Yeah.
And even still, like, people can disclose to their therapist what they want, when they want, how much they want, when they're ready,
Yes.
Just because you come to the first session doesn't mean you need to tell the therapist everything in that one time. That can feel pretty overwhelming, You can share when you're ready, when that rapport has been established and you feel safe with this person and you trust them and you can let go and be vulnerable, especially perhaps if you've had attachment trauma in your life by the people perhaps that were closest to you.
Absolutely. And when you think about what therapists, ideally are offering, it is a safe, validating, hopeful, understanding, strengths-based, and of course, confidential space.
Yeah.
So, as therapists, we are trained to navigate when our stuff comes up in the room, right? And be able to move through that and be able to work through that with self-reflexivity and with our own therapist or mentor or supervisor or our peer consultation groups when things within us come up, so that they're not splattering onto the client, that we're not projecting our stuff. And that's kind of a unique aspect of therapy as well, right? That is our work. As humans, obviously, we have emotions, we have triggers, we have things that come up, but that's taken care of. And the client is not impacted by that. Or if they are, it's a great opportunity to work again by building that trust and rapport to move through what happened in the room.
That's right. In a healthy way that perhaps may not be experienced outside of the therapeutic room, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Like in a lot of day-to-day conversations with family members, work colleagues, friends, community members, whatever, when someone is sharing something with us and it reminds us of something that we've been through, oftentimes, like you said, the opposite of what you said, people will say, oh my gosh, that just happened to me. And they will override the conversation and they'll steal the mic from the person who was talking. And then they'll take the mic and start talking about themselves. And that should not ever happen in therapy. While a therapist comes into the room and helps to co-create that space that's conducive to the client navigating through their trauma, that is a delicate balance to show up enough for a client that they feel like they're there with somebody, not like this, but like this, right? So we won't, our life does not come into the room.
Yeah.
Our empathy and our kindness and our felt presence, holding eye contact and our appropriate body language and facial expression when someone is talking, that's how we show up in the room. That is not aggressive or overbearing in any way. It's nurturing and supportive and validating.
Yeah. And, at the same time, I think there's a huge strength for therapists to show their humanness.
Yes.
When appropriate. But there in the mind, internally, you're going, okay, is this more for me or is this more for the client?
Yes.
So that conversation is happening where you go, okay, I'm really struggling as a human and I have this therapy session coming up. And sort of what's coming to mind now is one of my therapists who was a great fit. I came into the room and right off the bat, she said, I'm really sad today. I'm struggling. My dog died today. And I went, oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. And we had a moment there holding space for her. And then we had a full session for me as the client, what I was coming in for. But I remember thinking, damn, that's a good therapist, because I didn't even know until now that therapists could talk about how they were really experiencing life. And I'm so glad she did that, because it made me feel very connected. And honestly, I had her on a pedestal before that
Mm-hmm.
session.
Mm-hmm.
And then boom, yeah, she cries when her dog dies. I would too. Yeah, we're human, right?
Yes, we're human. Yes. And we may have some strategies and tools that may be helpful for you to consider, like that we can put on the table, but you're the expert of your life to determine whether that is going to fit or not. And together we navigate it, that wellness through connection, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so some clients, like questions like, do I need a referral to see someone? The majority of the times it's a no, right? Unless some insurance coverage, in which case they would consult their insurance provider to see, like sometimes you need a referral from your doctor for athletic therapy or massage therapy or dietetics, right? So those are questions to navigate with an insurance provider. But one of the other questions that often comes up a lot is like, how often should I come? How much time in between sessions,
So when a client asks me that, I usually actually put it back to them and I say, I truly believe you know what feels
Yes.
too short, too long. And if this is your first session, go with your gut.
Mm-hmm.
And then you decide if that was too long or too short or just right.
Mm-hmm.
But we can do weekly, we can do monthly, we can do as needed.
Yeah.
You get to decide. This is another, passing the torch back to the expert, which is the client.
That's right. Yeah. And sometimes perhaps the trend might be where people, if they haven't felt support, they want to feel it a little bit more often in the beginning.
Yeah.
And then when they feel like, kind of like when you are learning to drive, you have someone in the car seat with you, just providing you support, as you're learning. And then kind of when you know how to do it, you know where you're going, you're like, I can do this on my own. I don't really need you in the car anymore. And then maybe when you have a scary moment when driving or whatever, you might go and talk to the person and kind of get some feedback. But otherwise you're driving on your own. And that's kind of what therapy is like,
I completely agree. I say it's a safe, confidential space for you to access as needed on your own terms.
Yeah.
To get you to a point where, you can go out on your own. You don't need the therapist as much, but you know that safety net is there.
Yeah.
That connection is there.
Yeah, because life is going to throw us curveballs. It's just inevitable. And for perhaps maybe the majority of the time, once we've learned how to tap into that inner resilience and that wisdom, we can rely on ourselves to figure out how to get through it. But if it's been a really heavy or big adverse life event, or perhaps many back-to-back that are happening, kind of like in COVID right now, if someone's loved one got sick and was in the hospital and they couldn't see them, and they're not accessing their supports because we're in a lockdown, sometimes we need that person to support us, even though it may not seem like something really big has happened. Like sometimes it's just a constant drip of stressful events that we can reach out and find support. And sometimes we might do that when we can't handle it anymore and we need someone like right now, or we might anticipate, I'm going to be going through a really stressful time over the next year. And I think it's probably a good idea that I connect with somebody.
Totally.
So the floor doesn't drop out from underneath me.
Beautiful. I completely agree with that. And I was just reading an article reframing therapy as a weakness to therapy as a resource.
Love that.
That's what it is. I mean, I think actually, because of a lot of world events and COVID, people are coming to therapy more and more, and it's less stigmatized than it used to be. Yeah. But you still hear, definitely, I have lots of clients that say, my family really can't know I'm in therapy, or, culturally coming to therapy, this is seen as only for a very small group of people, maybe very, very mentally unwell people. Yeah. Or some people say, I'm coming from a place where there is no belief about mental illness and that kind of a thing. So this is the paradigm I work from. This is my experiences. So yeah, I mean, therapy is a resource, and hopefully it's a right fit resource. And that's, you get to decide as a client how that lands for you.
You know, what you just said reminds me of how some people go to the gym, or they know that I need to go for a walk or have some type of movement each day so that I can remain healthy. And there are more than one dimension of wellness, physical being one of them, but there's emotional, there's social, there's occupational, financial, environmental, spiritual, and taking care of ourselves in all those different aspects of wellness is also important. So one might consider coming to a therapist similar to coming to a gym, right? You might lift some weights, walk on a treadmill, go to an exercise class. The same thing is for therapy, but just finding wellness in a different dimension of wellness, perhaps being social if you're navigating some stressful moments within a relationship. You know, you have to work on things in order for them to be healthy. Or, you know, I remember when my brother passed away, like I had a lot of existential questions, you know, and like, what is the point of life? You know, what am I going to do with my life? Because now it just seems like it's real and I have to make use of my time here and finding like meaning, you know, and we might need to go to the gym to find wellness in that dimension, you know, or if we're struggling at work, you know, it's going to the gym. In my opinion, therapy is like going to the gym.
Yeah. And I'm glad you mentioned all the different realms of health and wellness. Like, it doesn't have to be therapy for people, or it doesn't have to be that it is for you and that fits for you. And that's beautiful. For some people, it might be going to ceremony or going to an elder.
Yes.
It might be reconnecting with their community. It might be meditation or mindfulness. It might be sewing or knitting. It could be training for a marathon. It could be boxing. I mean, it could be lighting a candle and watching the flame, right?
Yes.
I do that often. For me, yeah, your gym is my pool. Oh my goodness. If I dive into a pool, I am like, oh, this is so cathartic and therapeutic.
Yes.
And yeah, for me, it is therapy and pool. So I maybe am a little biased towards that, but for others, it's like expand your horizons on what is your resource.
Yeah.
And put that in your toolbox and draw on it as often as you need, proactively, reactively, whenever, just because.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I actually am not a fan of going to the gym. I'm more of a homebody and like being outside, but it's like it's a wellness practice that a lot of people in society have accepted or normalized, you know, and there are other ways to be well that are not those traditional ways. And I'm glad that you brought up all those options because we don't have to talk about things, right? We can create a song or sing or create art or cook for that matter, you know, express, you know, like mashing potatoes.
Yeah. It's funny, you know, like because I'm a therapist, you know, the language I use is this is therapy. So I'll be like, I need smashing a potato therapy right now, or I need to like break some eggs in my bathtub, or I need shower therapy, or I need to lie in a pile of warm laundry therapy, or I need to go play with my dog therapy. So that's like actually how I talk to like people in my life. But for others, they just might tap into like just what feels distant, what feels disconnected. I need to reconnect with my values. How can I realign with my beliefs, my values, what gives me life? And that can be really hard because when you're depressed or anxious, struggling, when you might be having thoughts of suicide, it can be the natural tendency to withdraw and to isolate. And And that makes it so hard to connect to what can be a lifeline, right?
Yes.
And then sometimes when you isolate people, you might assume they want space or they don't know, they have no idea. So it's calling for connection.
Yes.
In whatever way works for you.
Yes, within self, within community, or within a setting like therapy. Yes.
Yeah.
It can look differently for everybody. It's how it's arriving within you that matters the most.
I love that word, arriving.
Yeah.
How is it arriving?
Yeah. How do people connect, whether it's within themselves or with other people, knowing that connection is, wellness through connection.
Yeah. It's in the name, really. And that was a name that was co-created with a community member back on in Kenora on Treaty 3 territory. So that name has connection. It's not something I came up with myself. So I'm really glad we touched on this because it doesn't have to look any which way for people. It's just like a buffet. Pick and choose, try different things. You might not like that. You might love that. And it's authentic to you, right? But in terms of shopping around, we mentioned Psychology Today. Non-insured health benefits provides eligible First Nations and Inuit clients with coverage for mental health counseling that are not covered through other programs. So if you have a status number, you're eligible for 22 sessions a year that's covered under that program. EAP, Employment Assistance Program, can have work, can have some options there. There's free therapy options. And if anyone goes to my website, I think there's the drop down with support resources you can download. It's like a 3 or 4 page document, little bullet points of all the different services in the community, many of which are free. Lots of crisis lines. Might be some insurance coverage you might have. So anything else come to mind for you about how folks can connect?
Yeah, like there's different associations like mood disorders, anxiety disorders, victim services. I guess it depends on, there's different organizations based on attributes of yourself or the event that have happened. And so that different situations can be supported in life. If that makes any sense.
Absolutely, it does. Yeah. There's, like you said, different associations, some niche groups, some women's centers, some single parent centers.
Yes.
Also, some private practices. I'm one of them. Can be practicum sites for students. So students that are getting their degree, their master's in counseling, psychology, or social work. I have a student coming on in May, and she's looking for clients, and the sessions are $60 or lower. So options to go lower. Whatever fits within your budget is likely approved. So, because I'm the one that approves it, so check. You can have whatever rate you want, really, through the student, and that is an option as well.
Yeah, I suppose it's similar to like massage therapy or like estheticians. People have to learn how to do different services, and oftentimes it's offered at a reduced rate. Well,
and they're coming from a pretty rigorous program, so they're learning. Of course, we all are. As social workers or therapists with whatever modality, it is highly encouraged, if not mandatory, that you're always in supervision.
Yes,
so
100%.
That's maybe something people don't always know. I have monthly supervision, but I actually go more because I'm a nurse. I love supervision so much. I love learning and unlearning, and I love getting feedback and seeing maybe where I've erred and how to remedy that. So,
we want to help. We want to be in service to our clients. And so being the best that we can be, knowing all the different strategies that we can learn in our toolkit so that we can offer them to clients, because not every tool works with every client, like everybody's different. And so evolving and growing as a therapist is important to be in service of others.
And I always say the greatest strength that I have is knowing my limitations.
Yes.
Yeah, I really believe that. So I'll be like, I really feel like I'm quite strong in this area, and you're coming to me for this thing. I know a better fit for you.
Yes.
May not be me. So knowing your limitations as a therapist and being really transparent about that is important, I think.
Yes. And that consult call that a potential client can make with a therapist, they can ask those questions, like, what's your niche, and what's not your niche, so that they can see, is this a fit for me, Yes. So thank you for this. If anybody does have a question, feel free to reach out to Lana, wellnessthroughconnection.ca. And we wish everyone well. And until next time.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome.
Take care.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Journey with Julie. If you have a question, topic, or story that you'd love to share, I'd love to hear from you. Please visit my website and leave me a note. And I'll see you next Tuesday, where we'll hear more about how to shift your life from surviving to thriving.